starting in on body mounts. I'm going to start at the front here and work my way back. That 2x4 that I left long is working out just right for putting body mounts in there. And I realized that, hey, doing the body mounts, I probably should take some effort to center the body onto the frame. What do you think, right? Okay, it starts. Okay, so I bent up those brackets, dipped them real fast in the muriatic acid. Oh my God, that's a life changer. I used to just flap disc everything, and oh my God, that's awesome. Anyway, tacked them on, and they're there. Now I'm making something up for the part that goes onto that 2x4. That 2x4 is effectively the body rail, so, or the rockers. So that will be the front one. Some people lay down dimes. I prefer to think of it as going into my pocket, grabbing all the change and throwing it at the metal. Yep, it works. So here's the body portion of the first mount bracket going on. And what that rib is on top is probably obvious to most of you, but that's holding that side of it from bending over. It felt like I should wrap the 4x2, but I was a little bit close in proximity, so going with just a U bracket, I wasn't sure about it, so I just went over the top like that. Anyway, that was my thinking. As far as the rest of the mounts go, I think I'm gonna try to just stick with a traditional kind of a channel like I did down here. And that's what the engagement looks like. Obviously the hole is not in the top part yet for the nut or the bolt, depending on how I decide to orient it, but I want to get it all aligned and then drill up from the bottom one with the gap between the bracket and the frame rail is about 1/4 to 5/16 on both sides, and which also happens to coordinate with the keeping the body centered on the center line of the frame. So happy with that. Took way too much time for this first one, but I think this first one, because I was thinking it needed to be super strong, I think the others are not going to be quite as complicated. But anyway, everything I've seen on other cars is that the body mount that's under the dashboard is actually pretty substantial. So I felt like, let's make it strong. Plus I got that 4x2 kind of rocker section for holding the whole body together. So it felt like it was a good call. Anyway, all right, there it is. I'll get that welded up, drill a hole. Very busy and productive day yesterday. It resulted in getting this cross member in, which allowed me to get rid of all of the cross bracing that was welded temporarily into the door jambs. The side bracing could have come out a while ago once I had that this 4x2 in there, but the cross bracing was attached to some of it, so it just stayed in until I had this in. So what I was doing was, I knew I needed to connect the left and right of the car so it wouldn't splay. Obviously, once it's bolted onto the frame, it wouldn't move around, but I wanted to be able to take the frame down under off the body at will while I was doing some modifications, so keeping it kind of connected made sense. Anyway, so that's in. These are the brackets as I started to build them, and then as I was doing this cross brace, I was like, well, let's double down and use the cross brace as also the connection for the thing. That wood represents the thickness of the mounts, and I'm setting it up as low as I dare, and then can raise it by putting washers into the body mounts if I want. But again, once the whole car's together, I don't think those get serviced. They'll be accessible, but again, I'd like the idea of being able to pull the body off this thing at will, but I can't see it working out that way once the cage is in. Because it's a frame car, the cage has to tie to the frame. So if there's anyone out there who's got a ton more experience than me on this stuff, I would love to hear if there's any tricks to making it still removable easily. Anyway, kind of babbling on there, but So what's next? What's next is to start getting more body mounts in and work my way to the back. Okay, so the body mount project continues. Where we let off was had the middle section of the car kind of connected with that 2x2 and got those mounts in. And then I decided to jump back here because when I took out the rusty floor pans and as you can see up the inner wheel well, that was all just massive rust issues and clearance issues with getting everything lined in. So so I had both the right and left side of the car just dangling, flopping around. So I needed to connect those before I could figure out my mount situation. At the end of the rail, I've got a 3/16 angle iron welded in nice and square. And then needed to put a structure together. And the big challenge was, what am I going to do for the round? And I have thought about getting a shrinker and stretcher set up. I thought they're cool to play with, but at the same time, I don't really do enough of that kind of fabrication to justify it. So I went caveman style. Took a 2x2 scrap of square tube and turned it into a L shape, like an angle iron, and it's 16 gauge, so what is that, 065, and then what I did was I just put a bunch of pleats on one side of it so it allowed me to bend the front part, and broke out the deck lid, the deck lid is completely jacked. It's broken, it has issues, but it still lined up when I took it apart. When I got to it, I realized how bad the inner structure was, not to mention packed in with 50 years of dirt and dust and acorns and mouse nests and such. So I cut out most of the inner structure, which was going to make it a little floppier, but that suited my purpose. And also it took down a few pounds of weight and allowed me to get behind that. Bolted it on, had some hinge adjustments, and then used the deck lid in its bent up glory as a general guideline for this arc. And then used that piece to tack the fenders together where I thought they should be, knowing I'd separate them. I want to be able to take these fenders off at some point. I'm not going to do it right now, but I didn't want to weld them in permanently. But they were a placeholder for where everything went so I could put the structure back together. So welded that in, and then put the structure, welded the pleats back together so that thing became relatively strong. Got a piece of flat bar lined in there on the back side of it to kind of help hold it. And then built this little 1x1 structure, which then allowed me to put in plates for the top part or the body side of the body mount. And then drilled the holes, and there we are. So the tail end of the car is together. I've got some sheet metal cut for that piece, and I'm going to put that in. Obviously, I need to weldable primer the inside of it before I do all that. And it's really funny. I having restored a couple of cars to a pretty high standard, it's hard for me to not want to do better on every little thing I do on this thing. And the fact of it is that this thing is going to be thrashed. It's already thrashed. It's not going to be pretty. I don't want it to rust out prematurely, so I'm taking care to get things sealed up as I go. Yet at the same time, it's like, you know what? This is going to be a race car. This is going to be just a toy. This does not need to be beautiful. So I'm trying to remind myself of that as I keep going, so I can just kind of get to the next thing. So there we are. It's fun, and it's coming along. Stay tuned. The last of the main mounts. I say main mounts because obviously there's still one to do up by the core support, but that doesn't exist yet. So finished these up and was able to use one of the other templates I'd already made earlier and reused it. So that was kind of cool. And let's see, we've got mount rod on the other side of that, connects to that. And then we've got the high one, which then connects onto the side top of the frame of the arch, and then the ones in back, and had to rebuild that tail panel, and I got some more sheet metal in there so that it's kind of sturdy again, and still have some work on the inside to do. There's a big gaping rusty hole there that I got to deal with, but the body mount portion feels very done. Obviously I got to paint those a little bit, but There's the front ones started with. And I'm very glad that I started on the front to get that alignment and then worked my way back and then came back and did these. Everything, I can put the car up and down easily and everything literally just lines up. No tweaking or anything, so that's kind of fun. All right, well, thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps somebody with their project or just gets an idea of what others are doing. Thanks for watching.